Some of the most negative outcomes that I've seen so far would probably be like the punitive nature of the city. You see us building a lot of different prisons now. You see a lot of different schools that are more zero tolerance. And there's some groups that are trying to change that. There's some individuals, some families and neighborhoods that are trying to change that. But I feel like the punitive nature that we see in New Orleans has kind of exploded. There aren't many opportunities for people to have a second chance. There are a few, and I don't want to negate some of the good work that groups like Operation Spark is doing for young people, or like Kids Rethink are doing for young people. But I still think there's a lot of punitive measures that are being taken, and you see that kind of manifest itself, not only in like the interpersonal interactions with young people, but you see that sometimes with how the city handles small businesses coming in, or how it handles schools renewing charters or creating a charter. So I just see a lot of that like permeating throughout the city. It feels like it's more punitive now, just because after we're in this state where we're rebuilding the city, it just feels like a lot of the things that are trying to start from scratch are being attacked more, I think. I don't want to say that that's more so than it was before Katrina. It's a very different landscape, I think, and people are being punitive in a very different way. In the past, it has been more to stagnate growth. I think now it's more so along the lines of preventing innovative ideas from happening, or it's preventing people from having opportunities to fail. I know that's one big element. You have to fail in order to succeed. You have to mess up once in order to try again the right way. A few examples that I can think of are, when I think back to my time working at Rethink as an educator, I had the opportunity to be in a lot of different middle schools, a few high schools, and some elementary schools. And a lot of those schools were trying to be different, but one thing that was common among all of them is that they were very punitive. They had a lot of zero tolerance measures. Kids were in detention a lot of times. And I'm talking about kids who are seen as smart kids, or kids who are seen as the kind of bright, new ideas, those kind of kids that you want to see in your classroom. But regardless of some of the skills or some of the things that you saw in them, a lot of these schools still employed some of these zero tolerance practices that I see kind of permeate throughout the city. For example, they would institute this whole level 1, level 0, kind of like indicative of prison culture. You'll see kids walking on lines and tape to get to one class from the next. And I'm talking about in high school. I'm not going to call specific schools out because I don't think that's beneficial, but I do think we need to call out that specific culture so that we don't recreate it throughout the city. One of the positive things that I like to shed light on is that there are a lot of people from the city and a lot of people who aren't from the city that are just trying to do things in general. You'll hear a lot of people say, at least there's a conversation about this. More people are talking about education. More people are talking about rebuilding the city. More people are talking about preventative measures. And I think that's positive. If you don't have anybody engaged inside of those kind of discussions, nothing's going to happen from it. And I'm not just talking about people who are high level, like, oh, these are all city execs. Everybody's talking about it. My grandma's talking about it. My little brother, he talks about it, and he's only 22. So having people engaged in these discussions, I think is positive, because then after that, people start to act on different things. You can also see a lot of organizations that are trying to do things, a lot of small businesses that are trying to do things. Just out of Propeller, there's a lot of people who are trying to have a lot of positive impacts with their different ventures. Outside of that, New Orleans has a huge nonprofit kind of network, and people are trying to tackle different issues from different angles. I think that's positive. It's kind of like this huge explosion of effort that I think. And we need to make sure we foster that and move away from these punitive kind of cultures and more toward allowing people the opportunity to kind of act on these ideas. And if they don't succeed, how can they try again and bring some more positivity to the city?